Wow. So, Amanda, I get so emotional as I'm asked to speak words from my heart to you. And what I would say is that you are an absolute angel that was sent to us by, whatever the universe had in mind. Um, you have opened me to such a big, wonderful spiritual world through communicating with my animals. I never knew that they were the magnificent beings that they are, that they were as intelligent as they are, that they were as articulate as they are, and opinionated and loving and, all of the things that anyone would be. My animals are all of that too. And I would never have known all of this without you. And you are so kind and so loving and so giving. And I honor you so deeply for the work that you do on behalf of animals and giving animals all over the planet a voice to speak their truth. And I just love you. You've changed my life. You've changed the paradigm of the way that I live my life. And it's a great honor to know you and to have worked with you. And I'm sure we'll be working a whole lot more in the future.
Everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. If you love puppies, who doesn't love puppies? I love puppies. My guest today, Kathy's on the podcast, and she's got an amazing book that she's written that talks about a Border Collie's return home. And you're thinking, oh, did they run away? No, the story's pretty amazing. And Kathy's here on the podcast. I'm grateful because I got a copy of the book here in my hands, which makes me so happy. And she even includes a bookmark. Like, come on, who gives you a bookmark? That's amazing. Kathy's on the podcast. Really excited. The book is a memoir of our Border Collie's return to his soul family, Ringo's rainbow journey. Kathy, welcome to Living the Next Chapter, and thank you for a beautiful book.
Thank
it's nice
you.
to have you here.
I understand you live near Niagara Falls, and I'm looking forward to seeing a photo of my book near Niagara Falls.
Yes, you are. And there's photos in here, which makes me happy. So yes, welcome to the podcast. So glad to have you here. Congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
This just came out, right?
It did. It came out on May 23rd.
And how's the response been so far?
Well, really good. I've had a great response. I'm a yoga teacher as well. And so I've had a great response from my yoga community, buying the book and giving me reviews. And I've gotten a couple of reviews from more formal. I got a Kirkus review that was very good. I got
Excellent.
a Reader's Choice that was really good. So anyway, I've been getting good feedback about the book, and that makes me happy.
Where are you joining us from today? Where do you live?
I live in Riverside, California. This is in Southern California, U.S.
Very nice.
Where all of our crazy turmoil's going on right now.
That's a completely other podcast. We could do
Lordy.
a whole bunch about that, right?
That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you're here. I'm glad we have time to connect and that the dogs are allowing you to give us precious time where they could be at the park chasing frisbees and everything that you have time to be with us. Thank you so much. So Kathy, the whole idea, the premise of writing the book, have you always been a writer like your whole life? And this is just another book in your series, or is this like a totally new thing for you as a writer?
Yeah, good question. So this is my first book. Then I've always known myself to be a good writer, and I've always gotten feedback that I was a good writer. And so the first time I ever started to publish was that I started writing for an online magazine called The Elephant Journal. And The Elephant Journal is all about the mindful life and everything, all the fingers of what that might be. Um, and so I started writing for them, and then they asked me to be a mentor for other writers. And I have, somewhere over 90 pieces that they've published of mine. So I was a feature writer for them for quite a while, maybe a year and a half, something like that. And then, or 2 years maybe. And then I got inspired to write this book because I had told the story of the book to different people that I've met, including a lot of people from different countries, because I go to India a couple times a year. And so I meet people from all over the globe in India. And as I told the story that this book is about, everyone that I met said, "You need to write this down. This is phenomenal." And then I finally got inspired to back away from my elephant journal publishing and really focus on the book.
So the feeling then for you, Kathy, to be able to hold a copy of your book in your hands, what is that for a young author that's listening, they're early in writing their book, you're at a totally different spot in the journey than they are, or they're just starting. The idea of having the book and holding it for the first time, to encourage a young author in their journey, what does it feel like to actually have the book arrive at your house and you can actually put your hands on it? Can you explain what that feels like?
I sure can. So I knew that it was arriving, that I had 2 boxes of books arriving, and I was counting the days. And when those boxes, when the I don't remember with the UPS or the FedEx guy, but when they got off their truck and they had big heavy boxes in their hands, I knew it was the book, and I was so excited, and I couldn't wait for it to get in the house and open that book or that box. And yeah, it just it affirms the accomplishment that you've just done. It's a big deal to write a book. It's I know there are a lot of authors out there, but it's a big deal to sit down and put your heart and soul into something and then have it come out in print and realize that other people in the world are going to be reading this story that you've written.
Was there any part in the writing of the book where you kind of got a little bit stuck or felt like maybe this might not happen and you had to work through that?
Oh, absolutely. So I know we'll talk about the book later, but when readers read this book, they'll realize that there's a part of the book where I'm really writing the story of what happened. And that was easy for me because, as I said, I acknowledge myself to be a good writer. And when I sit down at the keyboard, I don't have a problem writing. I don't get writer's block. That hasn't been a problem. But the second half of this book is very rich with the dialogue that we had between the pet communicator, our animals, and my husband and I. And so, and that part of the book is such I call it a sacred story, because, when you read the book, you realize what a phenomenal story this is. It's phenomenal to me, and I lived it. And so because it would need to be such a sacred telling of that part of the story, I really wanted to get it right. So how in the heck are you going to write dialogue between a communicator, an animal, and a person, back and forth, and really make it interesting and readable to the readers? And so when I got to that part in writing the book, that's where, if there was any writer's block, that's where it came. And I just kind of set it aside for a while, and because I was ruminating on how I was going to do a good job with this. And then an interesting thing happened, and that is that we had another communication through the pet communicator. And this time I was speaking with Nina, who is the reincarnated Ringo. And Ringo is the primary one who encouraged me to write this book and let me know that he had really important messages to give humans. And so I really wanted to get it right. We were talking to the pet communicator, and the reason I wanted to talk to her on that day is because I was having a little problem with Nina on the agility course, and I wanted to sort that out. So that was my agenda for the call. So we get on the call and we get Nina on the call, and Nina goes, no, 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 no. We are not talking about that. We're talking about, Mom, you need to get your butt in the chair and finish this book. Get back to writing. Trust yourself. Trust me. We'll get this done. Get back there and get it done. And she wouldn't leave it alone. And she kept talking and talking and talking and talking more and more and more in many different ways about how it was my job to tell this sacred story. And if I didn't do it, I wasn't going to be living my Dharma. So that kind of pushed me to go, okay, pull up your big girl panties and get back there and be the writer that you are. And then I got back to it. But that was a major hurdle for me because I knew it was such an important story to tell, and I wanted to do it right.
Beautiful. Now that leads us right into the reason why the book exists and what the book is about. I'm sure people are curious to like, wait, hang on, what is going on here, right? And that's what I love about this. When we met and talked the first time, I was really fascinated by your story, and reading through the book, it really kind of solidifies our conversation and what we talked about. So give us a little bit of background then to what is the series of events that happened, and how you came to realize that you could communicate with your pets in a way that's not the traditional way we would think of communicating with our pets. I've always had rescue animals in my home. We have a loving home for our pets, and we have a real strong bond with our animals. But your bond seems a little bit deeper, way deeper than what we have currently. And that's really curious to me. How did all this start as far as realizing that you could communicate through a resource to your animals? This is amazing. Let's start with this.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. And so I have to rewind a little and say that the inspiration for the story was Ringo. Ringo was our Border Collie that we had for 13 and a half years. And he was just a beloved dog to us. And we were probably like any other standard family that has a dog that they love. And you talk to them and you think you understand them, and you know that they understand certain words. And, so there's a level of relating to your animals that I think most really good pet owners have. Well, Ringo was becoming elderly, and he was starting to have some signs of dementia. His hearing was going, his vision was going. He was having difficulty with his mobility. He would lay and sometimes pant quite a bit, and panting can be a sign of pain in dogs. And so and of course we'd had him to the vet, and we were doing everything that we could to make him comfortable. And we're at that stage in his life where you start thinking about, wow, he won't be with us too much longer. And is he going to have a natural death, or are we going to need to assist him in making his transition? So all of those things were coming up for us. And so I had coffee with a friend of mine who had recently talked to her dog through this particular pet communicator, and we'll name her now. Her name is Amanda Reister, and she's just an angel here on earth. And so she strongly encouraged me to call Amanda to find out what we could learn about Ringo's health and how we could help him. So I made an appointment to speak with Amanda, and we got on the phone together. And so as I describe in the book, it becomes our habit. George and I went back to communicating many, many times with, through her. And it became our habit to put one phone on speakerphone, another phone that we could record what was being said,
Wow.
and a box of Kleenex, because we knew that it was going to be an emotional conversation.
Yeah.
And so this is how we started talking to our animals. And from the very first conversation, we were absolutely blown away by the accuracy of information that she was giving us. Now, you must keep in mind that she only had our name, she had our dog's name, and she had a photograph of our dog, because that's how she tunes in to the energy of the pet, is she looks into the photograph, and then she can connect with them on an energetic level or a spiritual level, or whatever we want to call that. So she knew nothing about us. She knew nothing about how old Ringo was, any of the issues he was going through, anything about his personality, nothing. And she told us so many very specific, very accurate details about him, about our lives, about the other pets in our homes. I mean, she picked up incredible things. And so we became real believers. And I have to take a sidestep here and say that my husband has been a lifelong atheist. And I have been a lifelong seeker of the divine. And we've been together 40 years. And for all of that time, everything that I'm into spiritually couldn't budge him off of his atheism. But talking to our animals has completely made him a believer in the mystery of life. And now it's not, he won't say, I believe in God, but he's open to this spiritual mystery, this divine mystery, this sacred mystery that is there for us if we seek it. So that's how we started this journey with communicating with our animals.
Okay, so what kind of things were you hearing back through Amanda that, again, can you give us an example of something that really was solidified for you that this was working and that you were really connecting?
Yes. The first thing that he said to her was, she always likes to give the animal the floor first, let them talk about whatever they want to talk about, and then we come back with questions and back and forth communication. So she said, hello, Ringo. It's so nice to meet you. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? And so he said, I'm noble, I'm athletic, I'm beautiful, and he's using all of these positive descriptors to describe himself. And she says, that's so beautiful, Ringo, but why am I picking up sadness from you as you're telling me these wonderful things about yourself? And he says, because that's the dog I used to be. And I miss that. I'm not that anymore. He said, my dad and I used to go hiking together and mountain biking together. She didn't know anything about us mountain biking. We used to watch TV together and ball games together, and she's telling us all of this that he's telling us that is absolutely accurate. And then she tells us that he's really having problem with his mobility, and he's not hearing too well anymore, and he's not seeing too well anymore. And she says, I guess that he's probably around 13 or 14, but honestly, his body feels more like it's, 17 or 18. Mm-hmm. He's really, his body's really failing him. So that's just a little sampling. But then she went on and told us so much more about his habits. He loves to watch TV. And he would stand in front of the TV and bark for us to come and turn it on and sit down. He had certain programs that he liked to watch.
Of course.
He loved any dancing or singing programs, but he never liked any aggressive men. He loved to watch women He didn't like aggressive men when they came on. He would bark and growl at them. And so she told us these things that we know about our dog that she had no way of knowing.
Yeah.
And some of the stories that I relay in the book, as we talk to many of our other animals, get even more into detail about the specifics that she came up with.
So I can just imagine you and your husband looking at each other as these things come out.
Mouth drop.
How did what?
Mouth drop, saying, "Oh my God!"
Right?
Yeah.
Was your husband a little bit skeptical the first time that this happened, and you got on the phone together, and he's kind of like,
"Yeah,
I'll come. Kathy, I'll come because of you, and I'll do this because of you. But I'm not expecting much out of this."
Absolutely. You defined it perfectly.
And then when you hang up from a call with Amanda, then what does he say?
Then
at the end of that,
he's aghast, as I am, with the accuracy of the whole thing, and these are. I'm sorry. I think my phone. It didn't turn the volume off, so I'll power it off. So I'm sorry. So these were all the specific things that would make a believer out of you, and make him go, "Oh my gosh, this is so crazy. How did this happen? How does she know these things?" To then really listening to the depth of personality and emotion and spirituality that our animals were expressing. And those were honestly spiritual lessons. And his heart was open to these now because of what, I mean, he acknowledges that Nina is Ringo reincarnated. How does an atheist acknowledge something like that? Our dogs broke him open, broke his heart wide open.
So when did Ringo pass? And because that's part of the story.
Yes.
Like, how long ago did that happen?
That has been, about 5 years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I know for us, we've had animals pass in our home, and that's a traumatic experience when you're so connected with your animal.
Yes.
Like, you love them so much, and they're so much a part of your house. They're not an animal or a pet. They're family, really. They really are part of your family. And you grieve, and you're like, sometimes I know we've talked with my wife and I, maybe this is our last pet because this is so emotionally draining. But then there's this hole in your home, and you're like, I got to fill that hole.
Yeah.
They're part of my routine. They're part of my health routine. They make me walk. They make me active. They're comforting. There's so many great things that a pet can bring to you as a pet parent, right? So how long was it from after Ringo passed to you saying, we got to find a new life to bring into our home? How long was that?
Well, it was about a year, but it happened in a unique way. May I tell that story to you?
Oh, please.
Okay.
Yes.
So, what our readers will learn is this story, and that is that we talked to Ringo through Amanda a few more times before he passed. And through those conversations, what we learned is that he wanted to come back to our family in another body. And he made that very clear. And there's kind of a funny thing that happened. So one of our other dogs, and readers will learn this as they read the book, but one of our other dogs was really wanting to be a cat. He's a small dog, and he envisions himself as this big, giant black leopard. And so he would love to be a cat. So he was talking to Ringo about, wouldn't it be cool to be a cat? We could jump up on things. We could lazy around. We could hunt gophers. So he's trying to sell Ringo on, if you're going to come back as a cat. So at first, Ringo thought that might be a pretty brilliant idea, because he wanted to come back for himself or selfish reasons, but he also wanted to come back to teach human beings that reincarnation is a real thing. So we don't have to grieve quite so heavily for our pets, because they're in a wonderful place when they cross the rainbow bridge, and they can also choose to come back in another body. So we knew from talking to Ringo that this was the intention. We talked through Amanda about how will we know? How is this going to happen? And she assured us that Ringo would point us to the specific breeder, the specific time of year, the specific puppy, the specific litter, and the specific puppy that would be him reincarnated. And,
wow, really?
And he absolutely did that. He directed us each step of the way so that we were able to find him, who is now her Nina, and bring her home. So the other thing is that as Ringo got toward the end of his life and he was getting more and more feeble, and we were asking the hard questions, do you want to be helped to make your transition, or do you want to do it on your own? What's the timing that you see is right? And so he guided us through every step of this, and he absolutely wanted to be helped to transition. And one of the main reasons he wanted to be helped was because he was anxious to come back in his new body. So at first he thought he was going to come back as a cat. But then after he transitioned and he was in, we'll say, the spirit world, after he was across the rainbow bridge and he began to get his own sense of who he was and his energy and all of this back again, then he came back and we talked to him again, and he said, no, I don't want to come back as a cat. I want to come back as another Border Collie. This is who I am. This is who I want to be. And then we sort of negotiated in what body he would come back in.
So now that makes sense to our earlier comments around writing the book. Now, as Nina, Ringo is directing you to get your butt back in the chair and finish writing the book, right?
Yes.
So
that's
interesting.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes. And the other thing that's amazing with the Ringo transitioning to Nina is that when we've spoken to Nina, she wants to be acknowledged as Ringo. She realizes that she's in a female body. She realizes that her name is Nina. She realizes that, all the ways in which we relate to her is in this female body. But she wants us to know that this is Ringo's soul. I am Ringo. Don't look at me and say you're missing Ringo when I'm sitting right in front of you. Acknowledge me as Ringo. You don't have to call me Ringo, but acknowledge me as Ringo, because every time you don't, it hurts. It hurts my heart. It hurts my heart because then I feel like you're not really seeing me and knowing me. How profound is that coming out of a puppy dog?
It is. It makes me quiet for a moment just to think about this, because when I look at my pets, again, our bond is so strong. Like, I can't imagine my life without them, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, we only have them for a short time in comparison to our lifespan.
Yes.
Like I think I was reading something. This is a picture, and it showed a pet parent with their pet, and said something like, to you, having a pet is just a few moments in your life, but to a pet, you are their life.
Yes, like, it's their whole life.
Everything, right? And that we need to, people listening to this, Kathy, there's going to be some people like your husband going,
nah,
this does not add up at all. I don't know about this, right? Just like your husband, they're listening to this. But I think the one thing all of us can take away from our conversation in your book is that we need to treasure our pets more than chaining our dog outside and never interacting with them. Like there's something special about these animals in what they can do for us as humans.
Absolutely.
So even if that's the basic level of what we get through the book, then that's really important that we understand that connection.
Yes.
But we can go deeper in that connection, as you're telling us, which is exciting. And I love how at the beginning you talked about how Nina wasn't responding as far as the training you do and the work you do with her. And you kind of uncovered why. Because you were frustrated. You're like, why is this not working? Why is this training program not working? Why are you not seeing the results? And then Nina was able to tell you why.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. So tell me more about what you're doing with Nina. Like, you have a goal and you're working on something.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that too.
Yes. So Nina is a very active dog, of course, because she's a Border Collie and they're very active. So I have to keep her out and doing activity a lot to keep her happy. One of the things that I've been doing with her since she was about a year old and she's 3.5 now. So I've been doing this for a couple of years now. And that is to go to agility training. And this is where the dogs run through tunnels and go on a teeter-totter and jump over jumps. And it's a really cool sport. And it's a good team sport for a dog and a handler. So I've been doing that for a long time. And then I have a friend who, she and her German Shepherd are a therapy dog team. And so what therapy dogs do is they go into hospitals, libraries, schools, anywhere where humans can benefit from being in relationship with a sweet, gentle dog that they can pet and who will kiss them on the hand and let them hug them and turn their little heads as you're talking to them, and all of this. And so I thought, wow, because we've written this book, Nina and I, or Ringo and I have written this book, and because it's all about the nature of communicating with animals and dealing with grief about losing pets and the mystery of the breadth and depth of emotion and intelligence that the animals have, I thought, wow, it might be really interesting to train as a therapy dog team and become certified so that we could go into environments like that. And if they become interested, they can read the book and learn more about this. So I thought it would be sort of a natural next step in my marketing plan for getting the book out there. And so we are going to weekly classes to train for that. There was a big online course that I had to take and certify. So I am now certified as a handler. We have a date in 1 month to do our team certification. And once we do that, then I'll be able to go to hospitals and nursing homes and elementary schools and libraries and we'll be able to tell our story in person. And she'll be right there. How perfect is that?
That is great.
And she has a perfect temperament for it. She is sweet and gentle and loving and loves to meet people and loves to meet other animals. So it'll be a good match.
Those dogs are so smart. Oh my gosh.
They really are.
So smart.
They really are. And actually, they are very intelligent and they are also very active. And Border Collies get a bad rap because people think that you have to keep them busy 24/7 or they'll destroy things or, be unhappy because they're not out herding sheep like they were born to do. But my husband is a dog trainer, and there's a protocol in dog training called relax on the mat, where it's a training session that you use to teach your dog how to relax and to teach your dog that relaxing is a good thing. So through teaching the dogs that and practicing with that with them many, many times over, they now are very relaxed until it's time to go, And then when we say, want to go to the park, time to go to agility, let's go to therapy dog training, then it's like, okay, we're ready. But until then, okay, we'll chill.
Excellent. Kathy, if somebody's reading the book or they buy the book for the first time and they're ready to read, any kind of words of encouragement or love from you as an author to your new reader as they hold your book and they're about to read it for the first time? Any kind of direction or thoughts that you might have for the reader that we could share with them?
Oh, what a great question. I guess I would ask the reader to go into reading the book with an open mind and an open heart. And when I circle back to my husband as the primary example, but me too, this was all new territory for me and all shocking and interesting and affirming. And, there were times when I was doubting it, but I've lived through it. And it's just an amazing miracle that we're living through. And it's not, these experiences are not uncommon. And so I would ask my readers to go in with an open heart and an open mind, read the words and get into the story, and then take whatever you take away from the book back to the way you relate to your own animals. I have to say that in opening my mind and my heart to the communication with my own animals and learning the depth of intelligence that they have beyond me in some instances, the depth of emotion that they have, the way they express themselves, the way they learn things and move through the world. By learning all of this about my own animals, it's opened me to the sacredness of every animal on the planet. So when I see a little spider crawling across my garage floor, I say hello now. I acknowledge that this is a sentient being. I acknowledge that the wild burros that live up on our hills, but they come down into our neighborhood, I talk to them. As I'm going through walks around my neighborhood with my dogs, and other little dogs are peeking out from the fence and wanting to bark or wanting to engage with us, I stop and I talk to them. I talk to the cats that are on the neighbors' lawns. This has opened my spirit in a very profound way, a profound way that it makes me emotional right now just thinking about all of these amazing beings that we live with and have in our homes or have in our communities or have, up in the coyotes live up in the hills. I love the coyotes. I like to talk to the coyotes at night. It's really opened so many doors for me. And so this is why I ask that the reader go in with an open mind and an open heart, because it may open some doors for you that you may not even realize were there to open.
I love it. I love it. Because when you have a person come to visit you or you meet somebody on the street, you watch your dog and you watch how they respond to that person.
Yes.
These animals are so intelligent and so intuitive. They can tell. I can tell just looking at my dog and how my dog responds to a person.
Yes.
Whether the dog feels comfortable with them or not.
Yes.
And in that moment, it's kind of like a test of character. When my dog gets his back up a little bit, I'm like, okay, all right, I get that. There's something going on here. But if they're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this person's here.
Yeah.
And they're all like wagging their tail and their whole body's moving. I'm like, I have a little bit more comfortability with the person I'm interacting with just based on the reaction of my dog, right? It's kind of an indicator for me.
Yeah.
So pay attention to that as pet parents, right?
Absolutely. Those are words of wisdom, Dave, because we do need to pay attention to our animals' body language
Yeah.
and the way they're interacting with you relative to their environment. And in doing those things, we can respond better to our animals' needs. There was an interesting story about I think this was a German Shepherd who was aggressive with only certain people. And they were trying to diagnose what the problem was. Was it just men? Was it men and women? Was it tall people? Was it short? Trying to figure out what's this dog reacting to? And I don't remember how all the threads exactly attached, but what they learned is that this dog had somehow been mistreated by a pizza delivery guy at one point in its life. And, the guy shoved it or pushed it aside or yelled at it or something. And so now anyone who smelled like the spices of a pizza, they didn't like. So,
Wow.
so I think that's such a telling story because animals always have a reason for what they're doing. And we as their guardians, their owners, their handlers, their pet, their parents, we're their little pet parents. And we need to learn how to be good advocates for our dogs. In fact, this dog therapy program that I'm going to, they have an acronym. It's YAYABA, YAYABA, YAYABA. And they come back to that and teach you this when you're taking your dogs out into different environments. And that is, you are your animal's best advocate. YAYABA. You are your animal's best advocate. And we are. We're the ones that have to advocate for their well-being, advocate for their happiness, advocate for their safety. So if you're on this walk and you see your dog reacting like that, the best advice I can give you is just turn around and walk the other way. Don't put your dog in that stressful environment because it's obviously being stressed out by this person for whatever reason.
Excellent. I love it. I have one more question for you here, Kathy,
Yes.
as we end off. But tell us about your website. It's a beautiful website, by the way. I have it up on the screen while we're chatting. It's gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
How do we get to your website? Where do we go to connect with you? I would love to send all of our listeners to you. Where do we go?
So, first of all, my website is, of course, www.ringosrainbowjourney.com. And of course, there's no parenthesis or whatever that is called.
Yeah.
I'm a writer. I should be able to say that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's just Ringos, not possessive Ringos. So ringosrainbowjourney.com, that will take you to my author's website. And there's a place on there to connect. And there's a place on there where it says buy the book, and you can just pop onto Amazon or pop onto Kindle, And so that's probably the best place for them to connect with me.
Excellent. And I see there too, there's a Facebook link and an Instagram link as well.
Yeah.
So we can also connect there as well. And you can get that from your website.
Yes.
That's great. Okay. So I'm anticipating, Kathy, that Amanda is going to catch wind that there's an episode out about you and your book and the story. And she's a big part of the story.
She is.
Right? Without her, we might not be talking today.
Absolutely not.
I would love to give the microphone to you. I'm going to go sit with the audience for a moment, and I would love for you to talk to Amanda and tell her what she means to you and your journey, this book. And I just want it to be you. We're just going to listen in, but it's you and Amanda having a conversation.
All right.
What do you want to say to Amanda as she listens to this episode?
Okay. Wow. So, Amanda, I get so emotional as I'm asked to speak words from my heart to you. And what I would say is that you are an absolute angel that was sent to us by, whatever the universe had in mind. You have opened me to such a big, wonderful spiritual world through communicating with my animals. I never knew that they were the magnificent beings that they are, that they were as intelligent as they are, that they were as articulate as they are, and opinionated and loving and, all of the things that anyone would be. My animals are all of that too. And I would never have known all of this without you. And you are so kind and so loving and so giving. And I honor you so deeply for the work that you do on behalf of animals and giving animals all over the planet a voice to speak their truth. And I just love you. You've changed my life. You've changed the paradigm of the way that I live my life. And it's a great honor to know you and to have worked with you. And I'm sure we'll be working a whole lot more in the future.
Amazing. Kathy, thank you so much for sharing your story in your book. And I have it here again, Ringo's Rainbow Journey. It's a beautiful book. It's so gorgeous. So happy to have you on the podcast, Kathy.
Thank you, Dave.
And I would love for you to give our thanks to Nina, a.k.a. Ringo, and thank them for also being part of this big story.
Thank you.
On behalf of us here listening, okay?
Yes, I will. She knows that we're doing a podcast today and that I will represent her well.
I hope she listens to the show. That would be great. Hi, Nina. Nice to see you. That's so great. Kathy, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Everyone, all the information, as always, will be in the show notes. Please follow up with Kathy as well. She has a blog. She's got a lot of great stuff on her website. If you have questions for her, reach out, ask the questions. I'm sure she'd love to talk to you. And Amanda, thank you as well for all the things you've done for Kathy and her family. And again, Kathy, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, dear.
Hey, thanks for listening to Living the Next Chapter. I'm glad you stayed all the way to the end. You're my new bestie. And the one thing I like to do with my besties is enjoy time together over a cup of coffee. Now, one thing missing in the equation is my coffee cup is empty. And what I would love if, after 390 plus episodes roughly, if you found any value in the podcast and you want to say, hey, Dave, do you need a refill of your coffee cup? I'm looking at it right now, and you know what? It's looking kind of sad. There's not much in the coffee cup. If you want to help support the podcast, I would love you forever as besties and celebrate coffee with you. You can celebrate and support the show at our website using our Buy Me a Coffee link. And all the money goes back into the podcast. And we also like to give it to other podcasters. So if you want to support the show, head over to livingthenextchapter.com and let's top it up. Thank you guys. Thanks for listening. Cheers.